This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
It's the Dirty Laundry Game-Worn Hockey Podcast.
We're old school, right? We wash our own dirty laundry.
The name on the front is a hell of a lot more important than the one on the back.
I refuse to be judged by a grown man wearing a hockey jersey.
Game on!
Game on!
We are back with another episode of the Dirty Laundry Game Worn Hockey Podcast, episode 54. Thanks for all the comments, messages. Got some good feedback on last week's show. Had a collector reach out who was at the Buffalo sale. So we're going to have them on next week, talk about that sale and the camaraderie from being out there super ass early in the morning. The stuff that we always enjoy. Wade, Paul, and a new guest joining us this evening, thanks to the help of Paul Rank, and actually thanks to John's help as well, for getting me picking up a non-hockey related item from the Goodwill store in Vegas and getting it shipped to me because I missed the little piece that said pick up only. So thanks to Paul and John's help, and a couple days later and 20 pounds heavier, I have a nice, for any of you gamers out there, Borderlands 3 chest, super cool thing. So John, welcome to the show, and thank you for the assistance. It wasn't even hockey related.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that was a lot of fun when they brought that box out. I thought I have to ship this, but it worked out okay. And I appreciate you having me on.
Sure. And you're a gamer, so you knew enough about the game and stuff. So at least it wasn't boy, what stupid crap is this?
Yeah, I don't have the stuff with the figures and the extra loot box and everything. I just play the game, but at least I knew what it was. I do love Borderlands, so I that was a good part.
And the movie comes out next week, so you can go watch that. Hopefully it's good. Lots of stuff to get to tonight. Of course, drinking my old fashioned every week on the show this week, and I don't know where all it's available. This is the bourbon I'm drinking this week is called Barrel Proof, made by Cardinal Spirits. It's a nice 58.5 ABV. Got a good smooth flavor. It's good stuff. Picked it up at one of our local liquor stores in a town of like 500 people, but they have the best liquor store, and they do some fun barrel picks and that. So at some point we just need to do a bourbon hockey podcast, do a spinoff one week, but I'm enjoying that. Like I said, I don't know where you can all get Barrel Proof, but I do recommend it. It is a good whiskey for sure. Going around the league a little bit, Paul, you've got a couple dates for things coming up. One just 9 days away, the other one 10.
Yeah, the big exciting news is the Red Wings are doing their equipment sale finally on August 10th. They're at Little Caesars, and word's getting out. Should be a huge crowd for that, and I wish I could go back for it, but unfortunately, we'll have to rely on others to get a rundown of that show. Sounds like they're going to have a lot of the training camp jerseys that we've talked about in the past, which haven't always shown up at other sales, preseason, regular season jerseys, and I'm guessing they'll have some gear, but a lot of times that's slim picking at the Red Wings sale.
Now, real quick, before you go on the other date, is there a reason why there's not a ton of equipment? And I understand the high volume of jerseys, but why there's not much other equipment? What do they do with it?
I really don't know. I don't know if it's because there's limited quantities, i.e. the Red Wings are cheap and aren't buying a lot of extra gear for their players. And yes, that's my team. I can say that, I think. Or if players get to keep stuff, or if it's being sold. I know some stuff is sold at the shop during the season.
Okay.
So, but I don't think it's massive amounts of gear. So that is a question we'll have to ask the Red Wings at some point.
Maybe they'll actually answer that. All right, and then one really close to home for you the next day.
The next day, we're doing at Sunday, August 11th, from 2 to 7 p.m. at the Poorhouse Bistro. Another smallish show of basically memorabilia and fan collectibles. Not too many jerseys. I'm bringing the Rocket training camp jerseys. Logan, who was our guest last week, should be bringing some specialty jerseys from a collection he's selling for a friend. Specialty jerseys from both the CUDA and the Sharks. Mitch will have some fun stuff as always. And speaking of Mitch Armilt,
yes.
Shout out for him. And we'll have a bunch of those silly Sharks Hawaiian hats, the one which
Oh,
Eklund,
those look great.
the one Eklund wore after getting the hat trick. So we'll have
That's
those, and the
phenomenal.
Poorhouse Bistro will be making Hawaiian drinks and a couple Hawaiian specials from the kitchen. So that should be a lot of fun. It's right down the street from SAP, and anyone who knows us knows we hang out there quite a bit. So we're thankful that they're willing to let us host that there.
That's awesome to have that connection and to just have fun with that. And again, Mitch has been putting a lot of pictures of stuff that's going to be there, of the hats and stuff, and I love how he's doing the advertising for it. It's so fun.
He's doing a great job. Same with Ange and Danielle are helping out a lot on that. So appreciate them. Real quick, other date. Well, it's not really a date. Michael Rulhand is working on getting the Southern Cal Expo going for mid-October. He has a couple possibilities there. So hopefully he'll know pretty soon on that. It's on his calendar to work it out. And that's the only expo that we did not talk about last week where I've heard some progress of things going forward.
And I did not hear anything back. Paul, did you or Wade hear, either one of you two hear back on the Nova?
I have not.
Okay.
Wade?
No, I have not. I think we're gonna have to do some investigating journalism.
Yes.
Work this next week. I'm on it, boys.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. And a quick run around the different sites for auction. Some of the stuff we've touched on before, just a couple new things popped up. NHL auctions, the sticks we talked about last week close on the 4th. The carpet does now have one bid. Still at $2,500 if you want the presentation carpet that was used in Florida for the Stanley Cup. It's there. My Gray has New Jersey Devils white helmets and Predator equipment bags. The equipment bags go until September the 2nd. And actually, I'm sorry, their summer sale goes till September the 2nd. The equipment bags and the helmets end in the next, I believe, 5 or 6 days. AHL auctions, Crunch, there's a handful of Crunch jerseys still out there, and then finals nameplates from both Hershey and Coachella. So I didn't really see much in any of the other auction sites that we hadn't touched on or things change.
The only thing I saw was, and the only reason I'm following them now is they're our new ECHL affiliate. The Florida Everblades have released their finals jersey, their Kelly Cup finals jerseys. Went to auction today, and then their bidding looks like it started at $300, and then there was some buy it now for their final jerseys at like $1,500. But I was shocked at how many of those got. Like, I just kind of jumped back into it, and it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, probably 10 plus of them, around 10 of them got hit with the buy it now at $1,500 for ECHL jerseys, which just speaks to the fanhood of that franchise, and I guess that's what success breeds because they have a lot
on their third championship, their third straight championship. Yeah. So it's not like it's the get that one and they want to win 3 cups in a row.
$1,500 for an ECHL jersey, good for them. I think that's great, and it just really does speak volumes to their probably fanhood and collectorhood. Probably doesn't speak well for us Blues fans who are hoping to snag a cheap cheap jersey this coming year.
And say a friend of the show, a bit a friend of mine for a long time, and I think some of you guys know him as well. Of course, Jeff Jones does work for them, and he has his 3rd ring. He helps out with the equipment and stuff, and does have his 3rd ring from being with there. He moved from Central Illinois and went down there, and has had a great run helping with that team, which I think is totally awesome. So shout out to Jeff. Now to get into the big topic du jour here. For those not on video, John has a nice rack of Vegas Golden Knight jerseys of all colors, and looks like maybe Silver Knights in there as well behind him. So, John, is that your main focus?
Yes. I have been in Las Vegas for 17 years, and we were here. Backing up a little. I grew up outside of Boston, so initially I was a Bruins fan, and initially I was more of a football guy, and then later on a basketball guy. I actually, in the 90s, after I graduated college in Boston, I went down to Orlando. And while I was in Orlando, I got the wild idea to go around the country and see every NBA city, visit every NBA city, see at least one game for every team. That was after I'd gotten in on the ground floor with the Magic, the Orlando Magic, in 1989. And so in 92, 93, during the NBA season, I went around the country, drove around in my Volkswagen Golf, and went. The first time I went clockwise, and managed to go to all the NBA cities, and then decided I was going to write a book about it. So I managed to get a literary agent and get a proposal in to get the book published. But at that time, it took me almost a year to get the agent. And once you do get an agent and they sell it, it's going to take another year to bring it out. So when my agent got a publisher interested, I said, okay, so it's not going to come out for another year. Well, if you want, I'll go and do it again, and we'll write the book about the second trip. So I ended up doing it again, this time counterclockwise from Florida all the way around the country during the 94-95 NBA season, and wrote the book as I was on the second trip, and it came out in the fall of 1995. I have a little promotion. It's not like I'm going to make any money, but Paul's a big fan of it. I think he'd be mad if I didn't show it. So Traveling 3 months on the NBA Road by John E. Nordahl. My dad was John G. Nordahl, so I had to, at the time I cared about using my middle initial. But yes, it's about, usually you can find it pretty cheap online, or if somebody gets in touch with me, I can get them a copy.
I do have to jump in here. I did read it on a couple trips, it's like flying and stuff. And it is a fascinating read. It's really well done and highly, highly recommend it. And John, thank you for the copy. It's great, great read. So thank you.
And I want to.
Did you sign it?
Oh, yes, he did. Yes.
Thank God. All right.
And
it's really worth a lot once it's signed.
There you go. That just like when you get a jersey signed, the value goes up, right?
Yeah.
So John, and it's to stay on your book for a second, what you did, the timing of that. I mean, you see it all over social media now where people are going around every NHL rink or every major league ballpark, and it's all being documented online. You did it old school.
Yeah, it was something having to mail. I mean, I contacted all the teams by mail. Once I sat down with a printed schedule and figured out a way to try to, how soon is the next game in the next, logical geographic city. And then it's 30 or whatever, however many teams, I guess 27 at the time, 27 letters out to 27 press people for, the media directors for the teams. Hey, I'm going to be there. Is there any chance you give me a ticket? All this stuff. And yeah, it was absolutely crazy. And yeah, no, there's no blogging, nothing. It was right before the internet really took off. And the craziest part was the second time I did it, I was in Portland for my second visit there. And by the second time I'm doing it, I'm, really versed in it. I'm not showing up all excited. This has just become very routine. I've gotten really, I'm largely, probably more than halfway through the second trip. So 3/4 of the way through all the traveling. And they get me a press pass. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I'm sitting down in press row, and this young man sits next to me, super excited, really nicely dressed. And long story short, it turns out he's doing the same thing and trying to write about it and trying to do it in conjunction with charities. And I'm sitting there, haven't shaved in a couple of days. And I'm just like, oh man, I am the worst person on the planet. I'm dashing this kid's dreams, but I think he thought he was doing it first. So anyway, like that was one of the funnier things. But yeah, it was a real pen and paper stamped envelope endeavor, and phone calls and all that, and also no GPS. I went to AAA and they gave me the triptychs where they would show you city to city for the whole thing, and they were all in my trunk the whole time I was traveling. So yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Did you do it by yourself? I kind of caught.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, I did. The timing was pretty good though, because I was dating, but not anything super serious, so I could take off for 3 months. My work, I was working at Universal Studios as a tour guide, which was fun, but obviously not something you're going to do your whole life. So the timing worked out well, and I sold the book. That was nice. My tax accountant at the time was like, "Oh, how much did it cost you to get it published?" I said, "It didn't cost me anything. They paid me. Come on, man." But he was convinced that I'd done one of those, the subsidized publishing where you pay somebody to publish your book. But no, I made about $16,000 for 2 years work. So, I was rolling it, and it ended up selling about over 15,000 copies. So that was nice.
Wow.
And
So
how
one
was
more
it?
question. I got a question. What did it cost what did it cost to do the trip? And what do you think it would cost today to do the same thing?
All right.
Like,
Well,
when you go and
understand,
do the
I'm a guy
book-
in my late 20s, and so I'm staying at Motel 6s.
Yeah.
So
Safe.
I'm not,
Very
or
safe.
equivalents,
Yeah.
like a big night for me would be a Hampton Inn. So I'm just looking because I know I said it in the end. Okay. Since you guys want to know, this is the end of my book. Here's spoiler. This is the end of the book. From January to April 1993, I saw 32 games outside Orlando, driving 12,722 miles while spending just under $3,400 for lodging and gas.
That's
it's
nothing.
30 years ago.
Well, yeah.
And then from late November 1994 to March 1995, I attended 39 games in other cities, a 12,367-mile tour of the NBA that cost slightly more than $54,000. So, 5,400. Sorry.
Say, wow.
I didn't go first. I didn't fly. I didn't charter flight. 5,400.
Oh my God.
But of course, the second time I went, I had an advance. So since, when I was in Dallas, I stayed at the nice hotel across the street from the arena kind of thing. But usually it was a Motel 6 on the edge of town, and I'm driving into the game and driving out after and all that. So yeah, it was crazy. But I mean, it was a great time. But I don't know how you guys, what your basketball appreciation, but 90s NBA was unbelievable. I mean, that's, right at the end of the, right after the Celtics Lakers, but right into the whole Jordan and it was just it was
Ian
amazing.
from Central Illinois watching all that Chicago stuff.
Yeah. But so what happened was after I got back, so I had season tickets to the Orlando Magic, and that was my main focus as a sports fan. But a few things happened in the late 90s. I met the woman I would eventually marry. I started taking her to the sports that I liked. Orlando by then had an IHL team, the Orlando Solar Bears, who had been founded in 1995. They lasted 6 years. Fantastic team, made the finals 3 times, won it the last time in 2001. And so I took Jean, my wife, to my then girlfriend, now wife. I took her to a Magic game. She's like, oh, okay, that was fun. And then I took her to a Solar Bears game. And she's like, holy cow, what is that? And I'm like, well, it's hockey. They hit each other. They skate around fast. It's a great sport. I just wasn't as into it. But her appreciation was much more towards hockey naturally. And then I began to, in the late 90s, the NBA began to do that slow down tactics. Pat Riley was having the Knicks foul everybody, and the Cavaliers, and no offense to Midwest, but Cavaliers too, they're fouling everybody every trip down. They're slowing the game down. They're going away from the run and gun. And so it's a time when I feel like the NBA is getting is diminishing a little bit in my interest. And then we are getting into hockey as fans. And then a couple of years later, I had never skated. I know I grew up in Boston, but I had never skated. And my wife's like, hey, we should rollerblade. I said, fine, we'll rollerblade. So we started rollerblading, lots of fun. And then after a few months of rollerblading, she said, we could go to an ice rink and ice skate. I said, okay, fine. So we go to an ice rink and ice skate. And they have a sign up, learn to play hockey. And of course, because I'm an idiot, I'm like, oh yeah, this will be great. So the next day I'm signing up to learn to play hockey. And now this is after a couple of months of rollerblading. So I'm terrible. And I get the worst advice you could get as an adult trying to learn to play hockey from scratch in your 30s, which is I call the guys running the classes and I say, should I be just skating right now or should I be going to the learn to play hockey class? And they tell me, go to the learn to play hockey class, which is the worst advice you could possibly get because you need to skate before you can do anything else. But I didn't learn that. So on a very slow trajectory in the late 90s, I started, right before I got married, actually, I started trying to learn to play hockey at age 35. So when I'm doing that and when my wife's appreciating it, it's just ramping up my whole hockey interest to a whole new level. And after about 6 months of her watching me on my first team that I tried to play on, she's like, you guys are terrible. I'm like, yeah, I know. She's like, I'm going to try it. So she starts, and now we both play hockey 25 years later. And we both are hockey players 3 or 4 times a week in terrible adult games that we absolutely love. So I am not only so lucky to be in Las Vegas with our whole hockey history, I'm also so lucky that I married a woman who had that much of an interest in the sport, that she not only loves to go watch the games, she also wanted to take part in it, and we have been for all those years.
You're getting a lot more ice time than I am. I'm in net every Monday, and I just turned 46. That's at this point, that's about enough for me. But no, that's awesome. And I was lucky when I met my wife. Our first date was a Peoria Riverman AHL hockey game, and she bought me a jersey at the first game. And of course, now we're married. So lucky, and especially me being a collector and her understanding, especially buying gear and stuff cheaper. She's like, that's okay because it's not full price. So, but you're right. Having that understanding and that connection does make things easier. So, I'll ask this question before we get into more of the collecting side. Who's a better hockey player?
Oh, I think I'm a little better hockey player, but she's a better poker player, so it balances out.
There you go. That works.
She's actually playing poker right now. She loves it. So she has much, much better poker results. And but I think I'm a little. I think when in her development, she always was a little afraid to be to fall. Probably, like I've always tried to push it a little harder than her. So maybe I'm a little stronger. But we're close enough in both, so it's not a problem.
So you do like going to the equipment sales in Vegas to buying gear to actually play with, right?
I usually, the good news is if you buy good gear, it'll last for years. So I haven't too much. We actually, before hockey really took off here, we would go every couple of years and we drive down to Anaheim because they have a couple of superstores down there. Now, fortunately, with the growth of hockey so much here in Las Vegas, now we have a couple. We have a Pure Hockey and a couple of those here in town. But yeah, back in the day, we would if we had a couple of things break down, we'd either have to order on the internet or sometimes just go down to Anaheim and do something fun and shop for hockey gear.
I like the pro stuff. Paul's helped me with several pairs of skates, both forward and goalie, and that stuff just holds up. It's tanks for me at the level I'm playing, and I mean, I just switch out to newer stuff because it's newer. I can hand those off to somebody else because that pro stuff's so good. So you were out in Vegas when the Wranglers were there, then, correct?
Right. We were in Orlando for the during the time that the Solar Bears were there, and that was around the time I started collecting jerseys. And we came out. We both
let's back up on that just a second, as I should have asked that first. What got you started when you were down in Orlando collecting? Did you know you could, like, did the team put them out, or how did that pique your interest?
It was kind of funny. I loved collecting stuff. I did a lot of sports card collecting in the 90s, and what always been a kind of collecting bug, but didn't know about the game worn stuff. But always thought also, even before hockey was my favorite sport, I definitely thought that hockey had the best uniforms. Obviously, the real estate, the way they fit, they're always been fantastic. And the last season of the Solar Bears was the only time they did specialty jerseys, which seems amazing because if nothing else, with the Solar Bears specifically, when they were reformed in the ECHL about 10 years ago, they do, it seems like a specialty jersey like every other weekend. It's kind of insane. But at that time, when they were in the IHL, they didn't do one until their final season, and they only did 3. I think it was 3. They did a Halloween and a Christmas and a St. Patrick's. And I'd never heard of such a thing. And so they put out a little thing, we're going to play in Halloween jerseys, and you can bid on them. And I'm like, that sounds awesome. So we go, and they were bidding on tables with clipboards, and you would sign a bid, and then other people could come sign under you and top your bid and all that. And I actually got outbid in kind of a shady way on the Halloween one. So I didn't end up getting a Halloween one. I was very disappointed. But when it came to Christmas time, I ended up getting one. And that was my first ever game worn. And then around that time, I don't know, I think probably discovered GameWorn.net around that time. And that was where I started to get the resources, and suddenly found out that I could get NHL stuff. And it was kind of a funny thing about before I started collecting, I thought that if game-worn stuff came out, it would always be autographed. And this was a really weird instinct, but I kind of hated the idea of game-worn stuff being autographed. Long before I'd ever talked to anybody or ever seen anything, I just thought it looked weird to me to have an autograph on something that was game used. And I was delighted when I finally began to learn some of this stuff to find out that tons of collectors felt the same way. And it was just this natural instinct I had, which still continues to this day. Actually, Paul just helped me this year get set up with Tiffany, and she took off a bunch of autographs for me, which I'd never done before. So that was a huge. I was so thrilled about that. So the few I'd had bit the bullet and actually, I'd gotten something that was autographed because it was too cool to pass up. Now they all don't have autographs anymore, and I'm delighted at that. So anyway, I don't even remember, but it must have been GameWorn.net. I must have discovered it there. I know I was on there early, and that's where I started to learn about it. And my first regular gamer was a Bruins Don Sweeney Pooh Bear.
Wow.
That I got for about $350. It was great. It was so nice. I still have it.
The good old days of prices.
The other thing that was funny to me was I remember when we went to the first time we went to the specialty auction for the Solar Bears, they had a sample up there of a guy who was scratched. And some guy was on a phone with somebody, and he's going, okay, the crests are printed. They're, twill printed, just sewn on, blah, blah. And he's describing the characteristics of it. And I'm looking at my wife like, what kind of nut would be worried about this stuff? Just buy it. Who cares? And now, of course, we're all on here's what it is. Here's how it's constructed. So I'm completely humbled on the idea that I've now become completely what that guy was.
Yeah. Now you can, hey, here, I'll text you pictures. Tell me what you think. And if you want it, I'll pick it up or whatnot. Yeah. No, it's crazy how far we've come with that. And
so I had a few years of collecting while I was still in Florida. And then the summer of 2006, we both got kind of disenchanted with our jobs in Orlando. And we had always talked about retiring to Vegas because we love it. And we don't have kids, so we didn't have a lot of, uprooting wasn't really a huge deal. And so one day in the summer of 2006, I thought, maybe let's float the idea to her about maybe just instead of retiring to Vegas, moving to Vegas early. And I, at the time, had a few things post my time at Universal as a tour guide. I had gotten into video production, but I actually was kind of thinking about getting into poker because we had started to play some poker in Vegas. And it seemed like the people working in poker were having a good time, and lots of people were throwing chips at them. It seemed like it might be a fun gig. And my wife was a web designer, so that we can do obviously anywhere. And so we ended up going ahead with it and coming out. And we got out here in February of 2007, and that was in the middle of the 4th season of the Wranglers. They had been founded in 2003. And when we sent a map to our realtor, we X'd out, here's the Orleans Arena where the Wranglers play, and here's the rink on the west side where there's 2 sheets of ice, and here's the rink on the north side where there's 1 sheet of ice. So get us something that has access to those areas. And so we kind of based our stuff. That was the one thing we said, the nice neighborhood that has access to the hockey-related activities.
Hey, but you know what? People plan to move around things for all kinds of reasons. I had actually just before the show tonight, helped a friend pack up a few last things before they move from Central Illinois to, ironically, Orlando. They wanted to be close to Disney because they had some job changes, and same kind of thing is they called their realtor and said, we want to be within 30 minutes of Disney, make it happen. And that's awesome that you were planning ahead, especially because you were both playing hockey and wanting to watch some level of professional. And the Wranglers had a great, I know they've always had a great following while they were out there, and they had some really cool jerseys. I was lucky. I don't have one, but my buddy Mike McKenna did play for them one year in net, and those jerseys, I know they did a lot of specialty ones. Those were just sharp, especially with the dice on them and stuff. They were just some really cool designs.
Yeah, and in 11 seasons they had 3 regular jersey design sets beyond they had about 30 of the specialty ones you're talking about, but they did one for their first 4 years, then they did one for another 5 years, and then they did another for their last couple of years. So it was so funny. So I have about 50 Wranglers jerseys, probably because in part, not only are you collecting players you like, they have 3 different designs, and then you add in all the specialties. So I like to think I might have the world's premier Las Vegas Wranglers jersey collection, but
you definitely may, because those are jerseys you don't see pop up. If you do, they usually go for a pretty penny. At least the ones.
Yeah, it was nice that Migrate had the ECHL at the time had Migrate every team would wear 2 sets of each color, and the Migrate would get one, and the team would control the other. So that made access really good. And if you could wait a couple of years, you could pick up stuff at a Migrate summer sale. So that really helped.
Oh yeah. So you lose the Wranglers, then what do you do?
Well, I've heard the idea that I know the Wranglers got into trouble with their lease at the Orleans Arena, and I actually know somebody, I play hockey with somebody who works at Thomas and Mack, the UNLV arena. And he said that the plan at the time was because that was around the time they were expanding the AHL to the West Coast. And so all these ECHL markets converted to AHL, Bakersfield, Ontario, Stockton, San Diego came back, all that stuff. So when they were all former ECHL opponents for the Wranglers, that was around the time they put the AHL in there. So the talk was that we were going to get an AHL team to replace the Wranglers to go into the Orleans. But it was only about a year, and probably even less than a year, before the rumors started to come out that there was some guy I've never heard of, some Florida billionaire, wanted to come and bring an NHL team to Las Vegas. At the time, MGM was partnering with AEG, the company that owns crypto now, former Staples Center, and the Kings. They were each going in on a brand new state-of-the-art arena located right on the Strip. And that's T-Mobile. And at the time, they didn't have a tenant. They just thought we needed a better concert venue anyway. We had two older arenas, one at MGM and one at Mandalay Bay, but they were definitely outdated. And so this privately financed arena was being built right behind the Strip, right behind New York, New York. So suddenly, Bill Foley, a billionaire I've never heard of from Florida, just announces that he's going to bring an NHL team to Las Vegas. So we're all like, great, sign us up. And this is all private money. There was no public money. As far as I know, the only public money at all that the Golden Knights ever got was, I think they might have gotten some to build their practice facility. But in terms of the arena and the team itself, it was all private. So when we're on Facebook and people are going, well, why isn't this money going to schools and roads and all that stuff? It's like, there's no tax money in this. It's insane. And in 2016, when this is happening, just the idea that there wasn't public funding was just crazy. So we're like, yeah, sign us up. Yeah. So they made the official announcement for the ticket drive in February 2015. And Gary Bettman shows up for it. So we're like, holy cow. And I actually was lucky enough to have the day off and know somebody who could get me into that event. So I'm there in the Vegas Wants Hockey. And if anybody follows poker, Daniel Negreanu is there. He's a big famous Canadian poker player. So I'm a little starstruck and get my picture with Daniel Negreanu, and we're all signing up. And the team at the time, they were promoting the idea that not only was this guy Bill Foley going to be the owner, they were going to get the Maloofs, which is a local family that owned the Palms Casino and used to own the Sacramento Kings. And so I think they were trying to get a little more name recognition with the ownership. But at one point, I'm standing next to one of the Maloof brothers, and somebody says to this guy who's supposed to be a partial owner, is it going to be an expansion team, or are they going to relocate somebody here? And he looks at the guy and says, I don't know. I have no idea. This is a minority owner? I mean, even I knew that it was supposed to be an expansion team, but anyway. So, so we go to this event. They get a couple of beefy looking models to do a face-off pose. And I still got some of the stuff from that day, the Vegas Wants Hockey and all that. And they start the ticket drive. And so we all get signed up, for when the tickets will be announced and everything. So months pass, and then at some point, it would probably be that fall, I think. One day, suddenly, they just announced, no, I'm sorry. This would be in conjunction with that initial thing. This would still be in February. They get our emails, and then they announce when the tickets are going to specifically go on sale. And so on a Thursday, I get the email that says, okay, ticket deposits are going to be non-refundable and are going to be for complete season ticket packages. 41 games, 4 preseason games. You are not getting a partial package, and you're not able to get a refund of your deposit if you back out after you put in a deposit. So everybody's, or a lot of people are going, oh, this will never work in the desert. And then, of course, they're talking about how when the Jets moved from Atlanta, it sold out in 30 minutes or whatever. And then later Seattle did it, and everybody talks about how they sold so many thousands or whatever. But as far as I know, those weren't necessarily full lock-ins. I know with Seattle, they definitely weren't. But in Vegas, they let everybody know if you're putting down a deposit, you're buying a full season thing, and the deposit's not refundable. And so my wife and I, who were kind of leaning more towards partial tickets, sit there and crunch the numbers, and the prices seem okay. So we're like, okay, we'll go full tickets. So we ended up doing that. They opened the online registration to get in on a Tuesday. We got very lucky. The initial email came out Thursday. The next day, we found out that they had some groups and organizations were trying to sell blocks early. They had people like Daniel Negreanu, the poker player, like the local hockey program, like DJ Steve Aoki, people like that. They tasked them to sell like 30 or 40 or 50 packages each. And so we were able to get our deposit in on that Friday, 4 days before the official thing. So when eventually we got to draft tickets, we got to get in the front row upstairs, and that's where we've had them ever since. Now, the other funny thing about the birth of the franchise regarding that was that all the contracts that we all signed when we put down our first deposits, because it was February of 2015, said that the season that we were signing up for a team that was going to start playing in 2016, the 2016-17 season. Well, the league didn't approve it until June of 2016. So by the time they actually approved it, it would become clear that the team wouldn't be able to start until 2017. So technically, all these people, all of us who were locked in and shouldn't be able to get out, they acknowledged that if anyone who wanted to get out could, because they had the starting year wrong. So, but they contended that nobody tried to do it. And again, they were with the talk that everybody said about the concern that it wouldn't work in Las Vegas. The ticket prices were really pretty reasonable.
So the team launch it. I mean, and we know there was some people were upset with the name. Oh, we copied it from here, but the jerseys came out. The team was named. The jerseys came out, and those are some of the sharpest ones that when they first showed them, I thought anywhere.
Yeah, and the timing was great with the Adidas launch, because I thought that the shoulder dimples were specific to Vegas as part of the thing with the cool stuff and everything. And I thought, oh, it's everywhere. But it was a nice touch with them. It matched the kind of look of their stuff that the shoulder dimples came in, and they came in with the Adidas stuff. But yeah, it was pretty crazy. They announced the team name in November of 2016, just about almost a year before they started. And so they did it right outside in that plaza outside of T-Mobile, in the Toshiba Plaza. And so my wife and I go down, and it's packed. Everybody's having a good time. And so they have like a Cirque performers there, Cirque du Soleil performers, and they're on a stage performing, but the stage isn't elevated. So nobody can see it. The crowd, like, we can't really see. We're like, okay, there's Cirque guys over there, but nobody can see it. I'm like, okay, that's weird. Then they get this like radio guy's kind of hosting it, and he said, I heard this great call the other day. And he takes his phone out and he tries to play something, and he's holding the mic up to it, and nobody can hear anything.
Oh,
and I'm just looking at my wife like, wow, this isn't great. And then they go to try to play some sort of hype video, and when they go to play it, it says like NHL placeholder. So it comes up with like the color bars and like a temp thing up on the video. You can still find it on the internet if you Google it, this picture of what it came up with. And I'm just like, these guys are terrible. So, what is going on? And so they announced the name. Bettman announces the name, and they bring up the logo and everything. That's cool. But then they had helicopters ready to drop some swag and stuff. And so the helicopters kind of dipped down. They announced the name, and now there's helicopters kind of coming over the plaza. It was just terrible. And I'm looking at my wife, and I'm like, I am so excited we're getting NHL, but is this going to be some garbage franchise? Because I would be firing people if this was the presentation for the name. And then they also, that night, they encouraged you to go in. They had by then allocated all the season tickets to people who had their deposits down. So now they had marked seats of what you could get if you didn't already have a deposit, your ticket set up. So they've got pieces of paper on available seats and the cost and everything. And so they encouraged us to go in, and we had an hour to kill. And I'm like, oh, let's go in and see what it looks like. And they had one, what do they call the magnometers, the stuff so you can go in to get screened in. They had one or two magnometers.
Oh,
so
God.
we literally had to stand in line for 20 minutes, 30 minutes to even get in there. And it was just like, and so, we're looking there. And I joke with her now, it's like the last mistake they made. With that night was so terrible. I always wonder if people lost their jobs, or if Foley came in and started just laying down the law about we're never doing an event like that again. Because after that, almost everything has been insanely, obviously lucky for the team and for all of us. And I should retroactively point out that anybody who's watching or listening, understand that speaking for myself and pretty much every Golden Knights fan that I know, we all understand the fact that we are insanely lucky. We all understand the fact that a billionaire go-go owner who wants to spend every dollar he can and do everything he can to have the team win, a team like this, that our big struggle is that in our fifth year we didn't make the playoffs, and all it meant was that our players were rested so that when we went into year six we could win the cup. Yeah, we know we're not all hockey noobs. Tons of people. It's a city of 2 million people. Tons of people. But I meant to mention that off the top. But I'm sure many people probably don't want to hear from Golden Knights fans. I know we're the evil empire. It's insane what we've done and what we continue to do. And I'm sure there's a bill to be paid, which everybody will take great delight in. But it is, it's been ever since then. It's just been absolutely crazy.
Long-term injured reserve.
Besides that, I want to add to that. Year one, after the dispersion draft or whatever it's called, before the season, before you guys played a preseason game or anything, all the preseason outlooks from all the experts, no one had you even picked possibly making the playoffs. Nevertheless, the run you went on. I mean, the expectation for that team was, if they win 20 games, that's great. And obviously something happened that was really special that first year. And no one saw it coming. I was actually on the GameWarn.us podcast at that time. And I went down and said, there's no way this team's ever going to work in Vegas. The team they put together was terrible. There's no way hockey's going to survive in the desert. It's just going to be fans of other teams coming in. And I've been to games there, with John and stuff, and I was unbelievably wrong. It's the game, the atmosphere there is incredible. You do have a lot of out of town fans coming in. Don't get me wrong, but it's predominantly a Golden Knights crowd, and it's a lot of fun. So I don't know what you guys did that first year, but no one saw that coming.
Well, I think that some of them have talked about the idea of just the golden misfits, the idea that everybody had a chip on their shoulder because of the fact that they've been left out. And some of the stuff, I know it's been talked about before, but Florida telling us that if we drafted, telling the Knights if they drafted, or if they took Marchessault in the expansion draft, they'd trade Riley Smith. So we get 2/3 of a line. Marchessault had 30 goals the year before. Who does that? I know that Smith made $5 million a year, but it's not a bad hockey player. It was so ironic ultimately that when they went to the Stanley Cup final in 2023, they were playing that team. It worked out for Florida this year, but yeah, it was. I think that was a big part of it. I think it seems to me like they tried to draft for character and not just. And I don't mean character I mean position character. They tried to find somebody like Belmar to be a fourth line center and really chip in that way. They saw that stuff, or Carlson, kind of not being able to reach his potential when he's in Columbus, that kind of thing. So I think they tried to get guys for roles, not just the best player they could, and took advantage. And then some of the guys they took, the high-end guys, I'm sure they thought they were just going to trade at the trade deadline, and then suddenly, they had the season that they did. But so that was a big part of it. A huge part of it, of course, was the terrible shooting at Mandalay Bay on October 1st. That happened on the night of the last preseason game. They played, I think, 4 on the road and 4 at home, and the last one was on October 1st. And they played a preseason game, and then a few hours later, that shooting happened. And so in the days that followed, the Knights went out in the community and made appearances. And it really, it was obviously a horrible, horrible time. And to have them out there, and it was just really a natural sort of bonding time. And more broadly, I think the city was really, really hungry for a team. Lots of people in Vegas, it's a huge football appreciation town. Lots of people like to bet, all that. And so to actually get an expansion team, Vegas born, as they say, was a huge deal to create the enthusiasm. And then, the fact that they were so successful right out of the gate was just really cemented it. We'll never know in an alternate history if things had not gone as well, if there hadn't been the shooting, or if there hadn't been if they hadn't drafted as well. If in year 3 it would have been me and 3 of my friends in Knights jerseys, and then everybody else tourists or in the other team's jersey. I always joke that was going to be what was going to happen, but we'll never know. But they really, I think they got a foothold and a passion that the Raiders didn't get. Just in part, it's not like the Raiders aren't successful, but I think the Raiders have a lot of transplanted fans. The idea of an expansion team just made it just such a phenomenon.
And again, bringing up Mike McKenna, who I mentioned earlier, playing there, he was the color commentator for Vegas for 2 seasons, and I've talked to him at length and in other interviews he's given. It's just how the fans, and John, you said it, how endeared those fans were to the team, to everything about it. And I'll share a story that he laughs about. Again, he's just the color guy, but he was at one of the events for the Golden Knights, and some woman comes running up to him, excited to see him because she's seen him on TV, and talking him up and all that, and said, "Oh, me and my husband love you," the whole bit, and then calls her husband over. It's Wayne Newton. The 2 of them loved watching Mike do color and all that, and Wayne gave him his phone number and all this stuff, and just said, "Hey, we love watching the Knights, and you do such a great job on TV." But I think you said it. Is it just because it was an expansion? It wasn't you didn't just drag fans along. You created them there. And
we all think that hockey's the greatest, spectator sport, I assume, and everybody does. And so I knew, and there's the idea that nobody knew what was going on. Everybody went in the arena and didn't know what was going on. And obviously that's not right. You got people like me, tons of people who grew up in hockey towns and love hockey, and just because it wasn't here doesn't mean they don't still love it. But I mean, there definitely were people I worked with and my friends of mine who, I had to explain some stuff to them, and they were getting into it for the first time. But in general, yeah, when you have a city of this size, I think a well-run team after the name announcement night, but they're running everything else well after that, because they were smart. They put Vegas in the whole presentation, and I know a lot of people didn't love it, but the guy fighting, the night fighting before the game starts and all that stuff, who, by the way, that guy, the guy who plays the Golden Knight, actual British, I played hockey with him before, long before the Golden Knights ever existed. His name is Lee, very nice guy, actual British guy, looks a lot like Jason Statham, and he was a huge Kings fan. So when while the Wranglers were still around, he would have, we would go to a sports bar and watch Kings playoff games with him, and he would be really super into it. So I always thought that was so hilarious that he would become the face of the Golden Knights when he was a real serious Kings fan. So.
And I know, and like you said, some people complain that that whole thing's over the top. I think it's amazing. I have yet to make it out there to see it in person, but that's Vegas, and it's not cheesy. It's cool, and I love it. And I'm glad that they kind of went over the top with that. So we get through the first season, and I know Maigret had the contract for the first season of the team. When, I'm trying to remember, because I know everybody was following it and interested, when did the first jerseys become available from them?
So they did line up with Maigret, and Maigret actually had them for 2 years. And the initial stuff, Maigret was trying to line up. I actually heard Barry on a podcast talking about how they were trying to line it up so that it would be reasonable, but obviously they're not going to be cheap items, but he was trying to set it up so that they would be at a price where collectors could be getting in on them. I know that in the initial pre-orders, they were cheaper than they would become a little later. And they did a couple of, like in general, they did the 3 sets of each color that Maigret normally does, and then a playoff set and all that, and then a final set. And they did do some specialty ideas. Well, I shouldn't say specialty. They did. The first one I got was in March of that first season, in March 2018. Maigret came out and did a one-night set, and immediately you got your jersey right after, and did it on Handbid or Dash or whatever I think it was Handbid, but one of the mobile apps for bidding. And so I got Derek England's from that night, and that was the second time I got to meet Barry, and they were all out there. And then, but they did. I mean, otherwise it was handled like a regular Migrate team. I got in a couple of pre-orders. Paul got in on Merrill's jerseys, of course. He got fortunate that,
Imagine that.
John drew into the lineup right at the end of the set one time, so he got him. But I know Paul was smart, just like Mitch. He got in at a time when it wasn't clear what was going to happen, so they got much more reasonable prices. After it became clear, everything started to really go up in the second and third and everything. I was lucky with Migrate. The first order I put in was the first ever game was a preseason game in Vancouver in September of 2017. And my wife and I went, and they won, and a guy named Tyler Wong had a hat trick. And so I couldn't send an email because I didn't have service because I was in Canada. So I had to get to my hotel, and I didn't send an email for like 6 hours. And I finally sent one over. If that jersey becomes available, I'd definitely like it. And I figured there's no way I was the only one who would be in on that because, first ever Golden Knights game of any type. And I got very lucky. It wasn't on TV back in Vegas. And by then, the hype hadn't really started at that point. So the fact we went there, I was able to eventually to get it. That's actually the white jersey. In the rack here is the Tyler Wong is representing the white style. But so I had that, and I had a pre-order in for a couple of others. And, but at that point, it was just like a regular Migrate team. Now, the thing that became a little different was Migrate started coming out late in the regular season and in the playoffs. Barry and Andrew were coming out to do auctions in the arena. And actually, that was kind of a fun thing. So I'd only met Barry before all this. I met him very briefly. I actually met him in Dallas when the Golden Knights played their first regular season game. I met him for 3 seconds on the concourse and said hello. And so what was funny was the next time I met him, he thought I was from Dallas. So, no, you remember I'm Orlando, now Vegas. Oh, yeah. But so as part of that crazy playoff run, I was negotiating with him to get a little bit of a discount on the some Golden Knights players' former teams' jerseys. So Carlson from the Blue Jackets, a Schmidt from the Capitals, that kind of stuff. And Belmar from the Flyers, that kind of thing, for about 7 or 8 jerseys. So after we made the deal, he was like, "Oh, we can bring it over." I'm like, "You mean bring it over?" He's like, "Yeah." So he came to my house, and he and Andrew got to see my collection, and we're poking around. So that was something I never thought would ever happen. That Barry myself would be in my sports den in Vegas, looking at all my stuff. Probably, I don't know, a third of which came from his company, but. Anyway, so that was an exciting part of it. But yeah, so they did auctions throughout the playoffs. So those were interesting. And actually, one night I helped him. I became a honorary Migrate employee for about an hour. I stood behind the table that they had, and I checked people's winning bids on their phones and got them items. So that was pretty fun. So that was kind of a neat thing as a collector. I'd never interacted directly with him, and that was really, really fun. And in the second season, one time he came out, we had dinner too. So those were very fond memories. So, but at the end of the 2 years, yeah, the team saw the dollar signs and decided to form their own program. And so VGK Authentics it came in for year 3 in the 1920 season, and So Migrate, I mean, the inaugural season stuff with the inaugural patches and what was going on, especially the finals jerseys, were really, really, the hype was crazy, and the final stuff was nuts. The second season got a lot more reasonable. The stars were still expensive from Migrate, but he started to put down, regular players who weren't the key guys were, dropping down to, I think, $750. And so that was nice at a time when the first season, it seemed like they were so exotic to try to get them. So, I went in that second year, I wanted to get, my favorite number is 22. Nobody wore it first year, but second year, Nick Holden wore it. So I sent an email to Migrate, and they got me the first 22 in nice history, and it was, I think, $750. So it's like, that's nice after what happened the first year. And of course, Migrate's Migrate, so stuff that hangs on will eventually go on sale, and you know what you're getting. When Authentics came in 2019, it became like a team program in the sense that they didn't have the expertise that Migrate did. So when they first put jerseys for sale, they put some out in December of that year. Set 1, gray and white, and they priced them just crazy high, really, really high. And I don't think many sold at those prices. And then eventually some of them ended up on the website and some of them began to be discounted. So everything from them, everything game worn is now through them, other than the stuff that Fanatics got from the Winter Classic and everything. But everything since then has been through VGK Authentics.
Now, when they went internally after Migrate, did you have many conversations with any of them running it, kind of helping, again, because you've been around the hobby a while at that point, or anybody else for that matter, in their ear, kind of saying, hey, that's great you're doing this, but you're nuts.
Yeah, it was interesting. So in that third season, when they created VGK Authentics, they created a stand that has been there ever since at the arena for games. And they also have a team store that's at the practice facility in Summerlin on the west side of the valley. And that they will occasionally have a few things there, maybe a couple of jerseys and a little bit of equipment. But the majority of non-web sale stuff has been done through this stand, the VGK Athletic stand in the arena. And when they first released them, it was kind of like a different person was there every night. And you could just sort of tell by the demeanor that these weren't the real directors of the program or whatever. I mean, older, it was like an older guy, younger woman, and you didn't have a vibe that they were in the know about, or any sort of pricing thing. I feel like, this is when you're complaining to the front counter worker when you should be complaining to the manager kind of thing. So I didn't ever try to really engage with them. And obviously I posted in December that year that when they put them out, I posted the prices, and it obviously set up a big Facebook discussion about what's reasonable pricing and all that stuff. And whether, people are going to be buying them anyway. But I mean, they were putting out jerseys for $3,000 for average players, Carrier, $3,000. It was just, no offense to Carrier, I'm going to miss him. But, and that's a Carrier, the reverse retro, black reverse retro is a Carrier. So, showing my love. But somebody like that obviously is not a premium player. That's not a Stone. That's not a Pacioretty. That's not a guy of that level. So, Facebook's doing it and all that. And I think eventually at some point we began to realize who was a lady who was running it. And so I should point out that the good thing about VGK Authentics is what they're selling is real. I've never seen the idea of any sort of questions of authenticity. Fortunately, with modern photos and everything, I've been able to photo match almost everything I've gotten. And they have been very helpful to me. And they're at a couple of situations. I won an auction, and I didn't want for the Silver Knights, for the minor league team that's come here. I didn't want an autograph. I got in touch with them. They kept it from being autographed. A couple other minor things here and there, and they have been super helpful. So the great thing about them is they're nice people, and they what they're selling is real. The part that's choppy is that in the first couple of years, it was kind of a joint responsibility. I don't think the people that were trying to do it had a lot of other things they had to do. I think they were involved in regular retail sales, things like that, from what I understand. So they would have an email address, and it's not like you could send an email to them and you'd probably get a response, but it wouldn't necessarily be signed. You don't know who you're dealing with, kind of thing. And I heard later that it was just the team kind of split up responsibilities among multiple people, and it just made it tough. There was times where communication was not great in that sense. So that is something that has improved a lot. And actually, in the last year or so, many more people from the program, or several more people from the program, are taking the lead to get better communication and everything. But it was tough at a time because they weren't at Migrate standards of, when was something used and what's the value and all that stuff. So in the beginning, it was kind of like a lot of other teams, when they first start doing it, it's kind of trial and error on their part. Go ahead.
Let's say, so the documentation was iffy, and maybe the game tracking was a little off for some of the stuff worn.
Not there wouldn't be really game tracking in some cases. What they did is they put in a program where the uh, jerseys have, well, everything has a hologram on it with a serial number, and they have an online where you can check that, and that's been a pretty good resource and everything. And they, like sometimes like on some things they were real specific. This is a set date for this jersey kind of thing, and on other stuffs they're more vague. The example I can use is when in the last couple of seasons in 22-23 and 23-24, they've had a sponsor patch on their home jerseys for the Circa, which is a resort in downtown Las Vegas. And so the Circa patch is on the home jerseys and home alternates and was on the reverse retros, but it's not on the road jerseys. I think they might not be able to because it's a casino, but that's just speculation.
Yeah, I remember when the sponsor stuff came out, if you had a casino patch, because if you go to a state that gambling's not allowed, that advertising is even a violation. I remember that coming out when patches and advertising in general, because another team had a similar issue with that.
Right. So once the patch was introduced in 2022, they would have occasions where they would want to wear the white jersey with the patch if they were wearing it at home. But we have at least one game every year where they wear white at home on Nevada Day, which is the Friday before the end of October. They always wear white on that home game. They have a day game and they wear white. Well, the last 2 years they've done it. They've done a one game set and they've put the Circa patch on it because I'm sure they're supposed to contractually. And so they have sold those sets and they are one game sets from Nevada Day, which is fine. They were discounted. So that's nice. But on the LOA, or not the LOA, sorry, the set tag on the jersey doesn't say Nevada Day. It says set one. So you get a situation where if somebody hasn't done isn't familiar with the situation, they might not realize that this is not a full set one jersey worn by this player. It's a one game jersey. I think the letters might reflect that and the online database might reflect it, but I know the set tags do not. And then last year, the same situation happened the other way around with the gold jerseys. The gold jerseys normally have the Circa patch because they're the home ones, but they wore gold on the road 3 times. So they made a set for those 3 games without the advertising patch. Again, discounted. So it's, that's nice. They're recognizing the idea this is not a fully worn, not as valuable. But the tag on the jersey itself only says set one. So those are the kinds of things that you need to do your homework on to make sure that what you're getting is what you think you're getting if you're getting something like that in the aftermarket. And the team is getting better. They are doing a lot more things, like they were a little more vague on some of the Stanley Cup stuff from 2023 when they went to the final. And then this year, like when the team was able to market the third period jerseys from the Winter Classic, and they specifically said on the certificate that they were third period. So they have improved, and the stuff is real, and they are a lot better about communication. But like anything else, there's been many, through the years when they've had the stand there or the stuff that has been at City National Arena where they have the team store at the practice facility, the people are not, a lot of times are not super versed about what something is and when it was used. So it's there's a lot of us collectors who, we follow the stuff closely because it's our team. So we're aware of these circumstances, but that's the kind of thing that, you need to be aware of if you are looking to pick up something.
And another way, a lot of people picked up stuff. I know I sat around. I'm glad I didn't sit around too long, but bit the bullet. And I saw some last year and then decided to bite the bullet on it this year, is the grab bags and the different price points. I was happy, and I think Paul actually sent pictures to you, John, or told you about it, and the one I picked up was happy with it. Had decent wear, was able to photo match it to a few things, but that seems to become kind of a popular thing for them over the last couple seasons.
Yeah, that was a really amazing turn of events after a couple of seasons of retail pricing, and some stuff was discounted. I did get a few jerseys in 2020. Some of the jerseys that were initially released at those higher prices in December, by that spring had been massively reduced. So I was able to get some ones at what I thought were reasonable prices, but that wasn't really a consistent pattern of them. So they put out some other jerseys on the website, a little bit high, but from the playoff seasons and everything. But then it was 2021. They were promoting a Black Friday promotion, and they called it Gold Friday because that's the kind of stuff they do. And so my friend Stefan, who is a big time collector, who's done a lot of he does a lot of the groundwork for understanding and being in touch and all that stuff. Shout out to Stefan and Bill. But Stefan went to this event, and I'm just getting ready to go to work, and he texts me and he says they have game-worn jerseys in these mystery boxes. And I'm like, holy cow, these are game-worns? And yes, they were either $250 or $500, and they had a specific list of which players were in which category. And I actually wrote it down, so I would have it available, did a little homework. So that first one in 2021, the $500 grab bag or mystery box, I guess, did not have any Mark Stone jerseys, but it had Marchessault, Carlson, Riley Smith, Shea Theodore, Max Pacioretty, Ryan Reeves, Alex Tuck, McNabb, Carrier, Nick Waugh, Nick Hague, Zach Whitecloud, and John Merrill. That's for you, Paul. And I was about to finish that list without mentioning. I thought I can't do that. But so there were a few guys of lesser standing than that. But in general, I mean, that's after the kind of prices that had historically been for these jerseys, to pull a Marchessault or a Pacioretty for $500 is kind of insane. So it kind of changed the whole market and sort of, upended the whole idea of what, whether they were available or not. Like I bought two, and one of them was a Holden, which is fine. I already had a white of his because he wears 22. So I sold that to somebody, but I had never for a second thought I couldn't sell it for, 500 plus tax to somebody, because at that time in 2021, it just wasn't easy to get a cheap Golden Knights jersey. And so that was the first time that sort of kind of changed that whole dynamic of, what's the market for these jerseys? The retail is kind of high from the team, and now suddenly there's mystery boxes. So, and that first year, I had Stefan get me one in the morning, and then we went there to play hockey that night, and they still had a few left, and so my wife let me get another one. That's how we had two. So they didn't sell out. And for the next year, they didn't reappear. And a few things showed up for sale by the team at the stand, but not everything. And then in the equipment sale last year in 2023, in July of 2023, there had been talk that there might have been VGK Authentic stuff at the equipment sale in 2022, but there wasn't any. In 2023, they announced there was definitely going to have VGK Authentics. They let us in, and there was a locker room at the practice facility there where they set up with tons of VGK Authentic stuff, a lot of game-issued specialty jerseys, several game-issued reverse retros, and the return of mystery boxes. Now, in this case, they changed the pricing so that the highest end guys were now $750, but they still had a bunch of decent players at $500, and then lesser known, but still a lot of guys at $250. The wording for these mystery boxes is that they can be game issued. So technically you can't complain if you get a game issued jersey. But at that time, when they did that in last summer, they established a whole new idea of, this top of the line, if you get a $750 one, you're going to get some guy like Stone or Carlson or Marchessault or, Pacioretty. Well, actually, no, Pacioretty was down to $500 because he was off the team by then. I know, it's an outrage. It's an outrage, Paul.
I'm with you.
But you remember that summer you were hearing about the people getting them out a $500 Pacioretty Golden Knights, and these and they were. I mean, these were real jerseys. A lot of these ones that everybody were pulling, tons of wear, plenty of photo matches, and you would not get a certificate, but they have the set tags and the holograms. So, and of course, photo matching, you don't have to worry about authenticity. But yeah, so that was a change in the whole idea. And then they did it twice more this year. Near the end of the regular season, this season, they did before a game, they did it at the stand in the arena, which they'd never done before. Same thing, $250, $500, $750. And then by now they had evolved from mystery boxes to mystery bags. So some people were sort of peeking to see what color they could get. So that was kind of nice of them. I don't know if they'd get in trouble for me saying that, but you could look to try to see if there was a gold, since the golds are newer. And then when the equipment sale happened this year, same thing. The mystery bags available again. So it's been kind of an interesting thing. Absolutely amazing jerseys have come out of these mystery jersey promotions. But it's kind of interesting that it's not like it's stuff they've been trying to sell for a while. I mean, a lot of these just went straight into that. And so it's been fantastic. I have several, my friends have several now that are just unbelievable jerseys that we got at these discount prices. Just to sort of slide over, though, the only thing that makes it a little strange is if you're somebody who bought a jersey at retail, then what does this mean about the value of jerseys? If somebody pulls a $750 well-worn, Marshall So jersey, do they have an obligation if they want to try to move it to try to sell that for that amount? I mean, it's a lot like the idea of what happened with the Wild and that sale that they did, in that the only downside is that these are great deals and we're all happy to have them, and hopefully it just stays in everybody's closet. But you would hope that it wouldn't devalue the concept of, the worth in the hobby.
I think that comes down to quantity versus availability for me. The Blues did their summer sale that one year and burned out a bunch of stuff. And, the thing that happened in Minnesota, do I think it makes the Marc-Andre Fleury jerseys worth $750? No. And even in your guys' case with Vegas, I don't think it really affects the value because you got a good deal. I mean, the value of the jersey is going to be based upon the market and the availability. So, those are still tough jerseys, and they're great and they're beautiful. I mean, it's one of the best looking jerseys in any area of hockey. I mean, really, they've knocked it out of the park with all of them. So I don't really see that as, there's always the proponents of, whatever, that, if somebody paid something for it, they should sell it for that. But that's not real in the sense that, a jersey is worth what somebody is willing to pay for it, not what you paid for it.
Yeah, I think what you're saying in terms of availability. If my friend, who I have a friend who's trying to get all, I think I mentioned, a friend who's trying to get all the Cup guys. If he gets down to 2 or 3 guys left, he's going to have to pay a market value for those guys. And people are not going to be moving the stuff for it. So it's not something I'm complaining about. It's just a very unusual thing about what they've done. Sure. And it was nice. They did a series of fan appreciation things in the end of the regular season. They did jerseys one night, they did sticks, they did pucks, and to give that stuff at a discount is great. It shows the idea that they're not trying to gouge, and and they've done. Go ahead.
No. I mean, and here you're in Vegas, you're gambling. I mean, at the end of the day, you're, let's face it. To me, the whole time you were saying that, I kept thinking, well, you're in Vegas, you're kind of gambling on who you get and what you get. It's kind of fitting. I mean, I like it. I would actually love to see other teams do something like that because I do think it's fun. It harpens me back to the baseball card shop days where, a lot of times I've been to those shops where guys will have little grab bags, grab bag with signed baseball, and they'll have 30 of them up there, and you could get a really good one or you can get kind of a shitty one. But at the end of the day, you're still getting something. But I love the gambling factor.
Back in the day when Migray first introduced the grab bags, I would do a few here and there, and they were fun. But I would dream of the idea at that time of a Bruins one, and now of a Vegas one. I never want to lose sight of that idea. They are super, super fun, and the team's been, they are a very friendly, helpful team. They just at times have communication issues and sort of labeling issues, but they are, and like I said, if there's a hiccup, like. There's been stories of, you guys know about the set tag. Somebody buys Martinez's Winter Classic and it says Eichel on the set tag. And, I know that that was the Fanatics auction one. So Fanatics customer service is maybe helping the idea, but the VGK Athletics is exact same way. If you have a major issue like that, every story I've ever heard is that they've worked with people. And there's been stories of with these different categories of the mystery bags, mystery boxes. Sometimes somebody will pull somebody who is not supposed to be in that category. Like they bought a 750 and they pull a Chandler Stevenson. Again, love him. Don't get me wrong. Happy for him in Seattle. I never thought he'd get that much, but good for him. But if you bought a 750, you're not supposed to get Chandler Stevenson. You're supposed to get the guys I was talking about before. So everything I've ever heard is that they are always working with people who have issues like that. So it's more, I think, kind of maybe at times they're, the inexperience and some of the kind of idea of what you're trying to get out and everything. It's never, they're not putting out bad stuff, and they're being great with these mystery jerseys and everything. But yeah, so I definitely don't want to give the impression that I have not had a good experience with them. It's just an experience where you want to be familiar with what you're getting into and understand. And if you sign up for a mystery box and you pull a game issued one, they say that might happen. Actually, I saw somebody, they had a couple left over that first year they did them, and somebody pulled out a Nick Cousins jersey and managed to convince them to take it back. And I was so mad because I knew it was real and it didn't have a tag, but he was traded over at the trade deadline. So that's why it didn't have the tag, but it had game wear, and I know it's real. And they browbeat the nice people enough to take it back and act like they, it doesn't have a tag, so it's, you shouldn't have me have to take it. But they just didn't want a Nick Cousins jersey. So, but yeah, so in things like that, they are definitely into the customer service part. It's just that they are not as, a lot of the people who are doing it are not as familiar as you might find with people who are more seasoned in doing it.
But it does sound like that they've grown a lot, and they've made it much better and easier for you guys to work with them. And again, things like the grab bags and that, there's not many teams that do that. And I think it's awesome that they do. So it does sound like they have some growing pains, but they are managing it much better. And again, we've seen what Boston went through this past year and what Vegas did with their initial pricing, and things have settled out. I'm actually on their site now, just kind of, I was curious to see what they have out there. They have 7 pages of jerseys currently. But they lay out there, a lot of them, the Stanley Cup playoff jerseys from 23-24. And some of those, to me, I think are high, but again, you're the Vegas guy, where these prices should fall, but
that was the one series against Dallas. So yeah, they're high. But they have, they had some leftover stuff from previous years, and they have discounted at a point. I feel like the same thing I've always felt about any retail pricing. If any retailer, no matter who it is, most experienced, greatest one like My Gray, or somebody less experienced or whatever, if they want to put it out, or like the Bruins this year, like you were talking about, if they want to put it out, you can't sell out in 20 minutes and then complain about the prices. If they can put the prices that they think are there, and if they don't sell, it's up to their decision about how happy they are carrying stock or not, and at what time. But yeah, the Knights have discounted. It's not as regular as My Gray, with their, you get a little discount at the end of the year and a bigger discount if you wait a year in the summer sales, that kind of thing. The Golden Knights can be very mysterious about things like that. But, they do have deals. They have had deals come down. They had some, I think it was 2021 playoff jerseys that were pretty high price, and they waited a long time, but they just recently discounted them. So they're like any other retailer. If these prices are too high, then they won't sell, and eventually they'll come down in price.
And my only other complaint, again, just currently looking at the site, kind of looking around to see what pricing and stuff is there. These are I just randomly opened one up. The only picture is the back. There's no,
yeah, that part's a little unfortunate too, but
no other pictures. And that makes it, from a buyer, if it says it's issued, I know there's most likely not going to be any word to it. But if some of these are game worn, I want to be able to at least see if there's any major marks on the front or things like that. And if you're only showing the back, you're really limiting, because I know some guys really look to those pictures to see if there's wear, and they may, if it's on the fence, they may not get it because of that.
Right. And they, when they released the Stanley Cup final jersey, we had no idea whether they'd have them, how much they were worn, all that stuff. When they eventually released Stanley Cup finals jerseys at the beginning of last season, they put about 15 or so at the arena, and they put the rest online the next day, and a few over at they call it the Arsenal, the store at City National at the practice facility. And these they were it turns out they wore a different jersey each game, and the only home ones they had was the golds from game 2, and then they had whites from game 3 and 4. And that's another thing about do your homework, and another thing that I feel like the team could correct if they took the time to do it. When they put them out, they priced the issued jerseys, the guys who didn't play in those games, they priced them as if they were issued, but they didn't describe them as issued. So Teddy Bluger, Braden Hall, guys like that off the top of my head, or Logan Thompson, Lauren Bissois, they had their jerseys and their game issued, and they were priced like they were game issued, but they said game worn. And so you sure hope that people aren't buying them thinking, oh, I can get $1,000 Stanley Cup final jersey for, Hall. And it's like, yeah, but Hall didn't play in that game. So that's another thing that you have to be careful about those with the website. And then going back to your point about the pictures, they did their initial pricing of those, and then they knocked them down a few months ago. So I actually picked up a white. I didn't have a white, but I picked up Keegan Kolesar's Game 3 jersey because it was the one where he hit Kachuk and broke his sternum. That was awesome. But to be able to get that, I was patient. I waited for them to get it to where I thought it was a little more reasonable as a price, and I was happy with that. But as I was poking around getting that jersey, I realized that if they had, say, a Martinez jersey from both Game 3 and 4, not only was it only a picture of the back of the jersey, it was the same picture. So it's obviously not. And the reason I freaked out a little was because when I got the Kolesar jersey from Game 3, found a stitch irregularity in the back. Think I photo matched it. This is great. And then I go and look at his Game 4 jersey. And I'm like, how does that have the same stitch irregularity? And I realized, same photo. I started to look at all the others, and it's the same photo. So yes, they not only do not have multiple photos of them, they repeated the photos for those jerseys. So the photos are for representative purposes only, as they say. But yeah, that's the kind of thing that it would be nice if they could, especially when you're talking about items of this kind of, magnitude of the Stanley Cup final jerseys. It'd be nice if you get a few more pictures, at least a few. And when they were first doing online, a lot of times they would do 4 pictures, but now a lot of the stuff only has 1. So yes, that would be another area that would be nice if they could improve in that.
You know what? And make sure once this is published, send this to the offices at the Golden Knights and say, here, listen to this. This will help you going forward.
I don't know. Are you sure I'm not going to be blackballed? And I was kind of worried coming in here. I wanted to make it absolutely clear. You know me. I don't want to be excommunicated from the Golden Knights buying and everything. I want to be very respectful about the idea that I understand they have a lot of stuff they're doing. I don't think they have, it's not like they have a specific person that this is all they do. And they've been very good to me. And, I can respect the idea that, I understand some people get mad about pricing, but I can respect the idea that, you guys are a hot NHL team. You won the cup. You're allowed to ask some, especially when, you're hearing about, I don't know, I heard star jerseys going for $15,000 kind of thing. I mean, you want to make sure that you want to make sure that you're reasonable that some of these prices are not out of line for the current, especially with the way that the hobby has had everything inflate so much in recent years. So
for sure. And again, we don't knock any team on how they do their stuff, how they set their pricing, whatever. And we know in most cases, and some teams are better than others, the teams, that's not their primary focus. And they're definitely their primary focus is not catering to us collectors. It's to get those jerseys sold to whoever, be it a fan of that player who doesn't really care about the hobby, or somebody like us that wants a particular player and wants every detail on the jersey. And each team is different how they handle that. Some people you call the particular shop, they may, oh yeah, it's got all this wear and this, that, or yeah, we've got one. It's this price, come get it. So, and again, we're not being critical to be asses or to to knock any particular team on how they do it. We have seen so many teams grow from when they started doing it themselves. And again, my gray got through the early 2000s. Wade was buying them. I was buying Blues jerseys from my grand. You could, John, like you said, get on the wait list or shoot an email. Hey, I saw this happen. I'd like to pick this up if available. And we got so spoiled with that. And then as more teams did their own thing, they did have a learning curve, some more than others, and some jumped into it. And it was amazing what they've turned out. And others, it's like, wow, for a while, you couldn't get them outside of buying them in the arena. So I'm hopeful as we continue to do this podcast, as John, as you or Paul or Wade, when we interact with whatever teams people are involved in it, that we don't knock them, and we treat them with respect and give them solid advice or good suggestions of, hey, we've seen this team doing this, or we're seeing this thing, just as trying to be helpful. And again, Wade and I have a good relationship with Nick, who does the stuff for St. Louis, and he's very receptive, and we've seen some changes here and there. And Paul, I know you've said some of the thing, and we've heard it from some other people with other teams, but approach them in a nice way, and you're going to get much further. And John, it sounds like all the stuff you've done, we're buying stuff from them and talking to people, you've developed a good rapport with the people you deal with over there.
Yeah, I've been fortunate. I haven't dealt as much directly with them because my friends Stefan and Bill, they do a lot more of the specialty stuff. So they're trying to hunt stuff that's much harder to find, which is nice because I do more of the game worn stuff, or the regular gamers, so that we're not crossing each other's interests as much. But yeah, they've been trying to do that idea of suggestions and you know, and like one of the things, like going back to what we were talking about before, when they first put out the team controlled jerseys in December 2019, all these people would be walking up and they'd be like, are they autographed? And I'm sorry, please don't start at this idea of autograph. Please don't. I know you guys are new to this, and because I know, I mean, in general, NHL stuff is not, but I know that like the Avalanche had those hugely expensive reverse retros, and some of them were autographed. And I'm thinking, man, if I'm getting a one period jersey from the Lake Tahoe game for the Avalanche reverse retros, which are gorgeous, don't get me wrong, but if I'm spending all that money, at least don't have an autograph on it, please. And so, you know, things like that, you're trying to sort of get the idea of what you were trying to sell to, the market that you're trying to sell to. I know autographs are more accepted than they used to be when I started, but you know, getting ideas to them that this is not what you want on there. If I want an autograph, I could probably find a way to get somebody to autograph it. But yeah, I think they've tried to learn from those of us who've been doing this a long time, and I think that, you know, they've improved a ton. And and I forgot to mention, but as part of the equipment sale this year, they brought out there was kind of a mystery set of the jerseys they wore in the playoff rounds before the final in 2023. Those 3-round jerseys, they appeared for the Black Friday sale last November for one day and then disappeared until this summer. So I knew they were floating around somewhere, but they actually, as part of the equipment sale this year, they took those jerseys and a couple of the sets from this year and put them on display at the Arsenal at City National at the practice facility. So for the first time ever now, in the last couple of months, you actually can go peruse racks of game-worn Knights jerseys. They are generally expensive, but that is a first in their history that you actually now have a place that is not the website where you can go look for wear and things like that. So that part's pretty exciting too.
Are those jerseys also listed on the website, or are these separate jerseys?
No, they're not on the website. And it's kind of interesting too. The stock of Stanley Cup final jerseys there's only one gold left on the website and it's an issued. And the number of whites have gone down because they discounted them from what they released them at. But there were good, 8 or 10 jerseys from the final that were at the display at the arena only that I assume are still floating around. But no, they are not both on the website and live. It usually seems like it's one or the other with the team.
Interesting.
And we've covered a ton of room, and I'll ask this one question going back to basically the very beginning of your story. Do you thank your wife often for getting you out of basketball and into hockey?
I cannot ever thank her enough for being the greatest wife ever. And it's so funny. She's a normal human being. So sometimes I'll come in, she's like any other person. I'll come in and go, "Oh, we got to get this jersey." And she's like, "Really? We have to get this jersey?" I'm like, "Yeah." But there was one time I have a nice jersey room. And so before we go to a game, we will walk in and pick out a couple of jerseys to wear to the game. And there was one time we walked in, looked around, and she said, "You don't have enough jerseys." And I thought, okay, as we say in poker, verbal is binding. Well, I'm never going to forget that you said that. So yes, she knows that she is the greatest wife ever, and I do not let her forget.
I will make sure I clip this section and send it to you so you can play it for her, and one, she'll be impressed, and two, maybe she'll buy you an extra jersey or something as a gift for saying such wonderful things about her.
One other thing too that was crazy. So we like to wear the jerseys to games. I know some people don't like that, but we wear them once. That's it. It's not regular. I'm not eating. If I eat a hot dog, I'm taking the jersey off. But we did once we got the Golden Knights in 2017. She said, "Hey, let's rotate jerseys. Let's not wear the same jersey twice." I said, "Oh, that's pretty cool." So since the Golden Knights have started, we have gone to the games with usually a different jersey. I've screwed up a couple of times and repeated a couple because I have too many. But every game we go, we take a picture together and we take a picture separately. And I have put them on Facebook and on Flickr. Every year I'll put in an album of all the jerseys we wore the previous season. So I do not have a specific collection online, but there's a lot of hints of what I have from those pictures. So you can look for that in the main Facebook group, or I do have Flickr, my name, John Nordahl. And there's a lot there to give an idea of some of the stuff from the collection.
Final question before we wrap things up. What's your favorite jersey design that Vegas has done?
I like the red, but honestly, I love all of them except the Winter Classic was not my favorite. I admit when they released it, I thought maybe they could have done a little more, but we were lucky enough to actually go to the Winter Classic. So I have super fond memories about that. And I do have a couple of the third period ones. And I have been sipping out of a Winter Classic mug brought from Seattle because that was really fun. I don't know if you guys have ever been to outdoor games, but that was my first and it was just an absolute blast. Even though they didn't win, I didn't really care. But that's the only one. But I think of those 6 that I got displayed behind me, I think the red was my favorite. But they're all pretty nice.
They are, and I mean, when you look at them as one thing, and a couple years ago, I had a couple when Migrate put out I think they were the first year preseason set only. They didn't have the first year patch, but pick them up at a reasonable price just because, again, they're so sharp. But when you get them in front of you and just the detail in the arms with that gold and stuff is, I think about the only other jersey that comes close to that kind of thing is actually one I got through Paul, is that black set where they did the computer kind of printing in there, where it was very subtle. And if you didn't have it in front of you, you didn't really know that was there.
That's the Black Sharks stealth set.
Yes.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Those are pretty cool.
It's just those fine details that they're doing in some of the jerseys now. And I kind of wish some more teams would kind of get on board with a specialty or something and do that. But they're just so get in front of you.
The first
it was interesting because go ahead, Paul.
Oh, I just want to add in, the first time I saw the gold jerseys was with you, John, and I could not believe the detail in the arms on that. I mean, I know John has the one behind him. It's a nice looking jersey there. But in person, it is absolutely stunning. I kind of felt like those gold ones made the Euro ones look like semi-normal. And we all know how cool they are up close. And I mean, they just knocked it out of the park with that gold design and the details. It's stunning. Best way to describe it. So.
Yeah, that's what I was actually about to mention. What's so funny was we heard about the idea that the golds were coming, and supposedly it took them like an extra year or something to get the material the way they wanted and everything. And they are really, really beautiful. I'll tell you though, they are a pain to photo match because they catch the light and everything in the photos. So you're trying to find something. So you really want a good big hole or obvious mark in the white part or huge repair or something, because trying to find something on the body of it can be really difficult. But that is a first world problem when we do have everything else going so well. So.
Well, it was funny because again, going back to the grab bag, and I know, like I said, I know Paul sent you pictures of the one I got. Coughlin, I think, is how you pronounce his last name. Or 52. It was one of the $250 grab bags, and one of the best photo matches I found, because it's a white, is he's walking through a tunnel of one of the teams, and the camera's kind of over the top of him. There's a mark across the Vegas logo, and it's a perfect shot on it, and he's not even on the ice. I just thought it was a cool, not traditional photo match.
Yes, the mighty Dylan Coughlin. He had a hat trick on the road, not in that jersey, but that way he was the first Vegas defenseman to get a hat trick.
Hey, I mean, not beat to hell, but has some decent marks and nice photo match, and at the price of basically buying a blank jersey, I'm very happy with it. And again, they're sharp looking. Before we get out of here, John, any final thoughts from you before we go around the horn here?
Well, I see how long we've been talking. I hope it didn't go on too long, but I do like to tell my stories. Paul can tell you, I do like to tell my stories, but I really appreciate the opportunity. This was a lot of fun. And if you ever want me back, I promise I'll take a supporting role and not yammer on as much.
No, you are more than welcome. And it is so cool to hear the basketball traveling story too. Again, pre-social media, really pre-internet, all the stuff, because now it's all about, oh, how many likes I can get and all that. And you did it the old-fashioned way before it was popular, and you crushed another kid's dreams. Look at you. So, Wade, I'll start with you. What you got any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Oh, really great meeting John on the show. Fantastic story. It's always great to hear about, another franchise, their collectors, especially in this case, something that's so different because it's not an original six team or a team that's been around forever. So learning, the intricacies of something so fresh is really cool. Please try to stay under the cap for the playoffs next year. And thanks for joining us.
I think Stone has already gotten another injury, so he's going to.
Yeah, I was going to say, I bet he's already ready. He's already ready for his long-term.
Now, see, my only complaint about that is we get all this grief about how he's exploiting the cap. And then he comes back in the playoffs and he's clearly not healthy. And now suddenly it's, Stone is made of glass. Well, which is it? Either he's a cheater or he's made of glass. You cannot have both.
It's not just you guys. I mean, Tampa did it a little bit. It's kind of until the NHL decides to make a change to protect the cap, it's just the wave of what we deal with, and it is what it is. I mean, good for them for doing it, bad for the league for allowing it. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, in this case, this season, he got hurt.
It worked against you.
You what?
It worked against you for once. I mean, unfortunately,
this year he got hurt, not on any sort of timeline, but the year before in 2023. He was dealing with back issues and went to the doctors and said, how much time do I need to heal? And they said, you need X. And he said, I'm going to go get the surgery when X is before the playoffs. So I get it. And I was utterly shocked. That was his second back surgery during that. He had one right before that season too. So I have no idea how in the world he did what he did in the 2023 playoffs. And I will never complain. But I think the Mark Stone story was more the typical example was what happened this year, and in 22 everybody complained, but he was not healthy at the end of that year either. So I get how everybody hates it, but the Cup year, the idea was I need surgery. How much time do I need to heal? They told him, and that's why he did it. He was not practicing for a month like I heard Kucherov was before Tampa did it. So.
Paul, what have you got for to wrap this up?
Well, just quickly on the salary cap issue, I'd prefer they just get rid of the salary cap so I can get my 1990s Red Wings back.
Yes.
But yeah, that's not going to happen. We're not going backwards there. So,
or there's talk going the other direction where it's cap in the playoffs to a point too.
Yeah, that would be. It's going to be interesting what they do decide to do because there are legitimate cases of it, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, no, I'd just say get rid of the cap, let them play, and the teams that we like that will throw money at players will dominate again, and I'll be happy. Other things, just throw out some thoughts. I know the Vegas pricing, has been fairly high over the years. I really enjoyed going to games there, being able to go to the game worn stand, not have to wait in a line to see stuff, and be able to find a jersey you want and actually buy it there.
Yeah.
One of our trips there, where we went with John, Monica and I picked up a Paxaretti jersey. A little bit more than what we wanted to spend, but it was still there, and super thrilled to have that in our collection. And I thought how they do the game worn stand there has been wonderful. And I did not realize they had additional jerseys at the practice facility. Or else my last trip there for the draft, I would have wanted to head out there. But
They weren't set up yet.
oh, okay. There we go.
See, you didn't miss
Next
anything, Paul.
Yeah. Now it means another trip. So 2026 Frozen 4. So
Or tomorrow you'll go to Vegas.
I have a guest room.
Yes.
But to me, I think with the program, I think it's kind of like Migray's philosophy as well, which is you can not love a price, but the bottom line I think we all really want is let's make sure this is real and this is what we think it is. And then, maybe we're spending a little more than we want on some stuff. Maybe we're getting a great deal on something else. But the bottom line is nobody wants to find out a year after you get it that this is not what you thought it was. And I think that they have done a good job. Sometimes they have, they're not aware themselves of specifics about things. And that's why you need to make sure that you're doing your homework. But I think, it just like Migray always says, get it real, get it from Migray. I think as hobbyists, that's the biggest thing. A couple of dollars here and there is one thing. Finding out you didn't get what you wanted is another.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And the thing to add to that is also access. Because of the price points, not everything sells out right away. And it's nice to be able to pick up something when you want it. And knowing it's legit and it's backed up, it's because they do, we didn't talk about this on the show, they do have the online database too. I know you mentioned it briefly, where you can enter in the hologram number. And I think that's all you enter in now, not mistaken, John.
Yep. And some people pulled preseason jerseys with obvious wear from the 250 mystery boxes, mystery bags, and they contacted the team, and the team, and the database said they were issued, and they contacted the team, and the team corrected them to say that they were preseason worn. So again, they are working. It's just they're not, it's not, Migray's dedicated team top to bottom. This is all they do. That's not the case with VGK Athletics, but again, they're getting a lot better and they're doing a lot of things. So it is improving all the time.
Well, John, we will definitely have you back on. I think it's been a fun discussion to get your backstory and to get from when Vegas started and how they've done stuff and what you've picked up and continue to. And as news breaks out there or grab bags happen or whatever, I know you'll help us be on top of it. We appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. I really had a great time. And again, hopefully I didn't make anyone mad at the team, but everything is said is true. And it comes from a place of love and hope that we can all continue to, what's the meme? Take my money. That's they do it. They bring out, the next great thing. And I'm like, sign me up.
There you go. Again, thank you for all the listeners out there. Like, subscribe, follow, give us 5 stars whatever you listen to the podcast on. Try to get us ranked on some list somewhere. If you have ideas, if you want to come on, things like that. Like I said, next week can have a collector from Buffalo who was at the Sabres sale last weekend. Give us some info on that and the fun they had sitting out there from very early in the morning. We'll see you guys all back next week.